Hello everybody, Gisele Grenier here. In this video I'm going to be creating the collage version of the daisy meditation stone I created previously. I am going to tell you this one is a little bit more difficult. It's not as refined as the painted stone because tissue paper, when you wrap it around something that's round, you get wrinkles and stuff like that. And that's just something that's part of the process. So if you're going to get frustrated by the wrinkles, then don't bother doing this. So I'm going to show you the process of doing one, and then I've already got one just to show you how bad the wrinkles are. So let's go down to the table. So in case you haven't seen that video, we start off with basically an unfinished stone, which you clean really well, soap and water, rinse it, let it air dry. Then you take some gesso, and I'm using the Deco Media White Gesso. You apply one layer, and all you do is just put it on like that. That's one coat. You let that dry, then you flip it and do the other side. And then you let that dry, then you apply another layer, which looks like that. Let that dry, do the other side, then you apply another layer. So when you're painting stones, because if they're going to be just for indoor, then 2 coats of gesso is fine. But if they're going to be for outdoor, have at least 3 good even layers of gesso. That way you have full coverage, and then the varnish is really important as well. So I'm going to put that aside, and I've got this stone here, and this is going to be just for demonstration purposes, so I didn't worry about putting a gazillion layers of gesso. And this is the paper I'm going to be using. This is from my friend Allison. So on the previous stone, I did a painted background using this as the inspiration. So for this time, I'm using the collage paper, or the tissue, I should say. And the colors, let's bring that over here. I think my table is uneven. And I'm using the Deco Media Fluid Acrylics, and the colors are titanium white, Hansa yellow medium, naphtha red light, ultramarine blue, and burnt sienna. Put that over there. Just a flat brush, round brush, and a liner brush. I'm not sure if I'm going to need this. Oh, and my special varnishing brush for the end. And for the varnish, I'm going to be using Americana Duraclear High Gloss. It's a polyurethane varnish, indoor and outdoor use. So I cut a piece of the tissue, and then what I did is I put it down, and then I just cut pieces around. And this is the part that, I did the other stone. I just did it as a wraparound, and I'm going to be using the Deco Media Matte Medium. And you can use the decoupage as well, the decoupage medium for tissue. I ran out. It's just a little bit easier to glue the stuff down. So all I'm going to do is just basically put that on there. I'm not going to put it on there yet. I'll flip it over. And just put that around. That'll just grab it. And then you just start wrapping. You just start wrapping. Oops, I didn't quite cut that one right. Oh well. See, this is where the wrinkles start coming in. Like I said, if the wrinkles are going to bother you, then don't do it this way. But if you're going to set the stone, let's say if it's in a planter or something, the bottom isn't even going to show. And this tissue is absolutely perfect because it's so thin. It wraps really nice. You have to make sure you take the backing off. And you can use it for something else. And anytime you use the matte medium, make sure you wash your hands because this stuff is super sticky, which is a good thing. And I'm sure there's a way to, fuss around the cuts and scientific measurements. No. There we go. So basically from this is that you let it dry, and then you would flip it over and you would cover this side. I want to show you how I dry my stones when I do all around pieces, like this type of thing. I'm just going to put the matte medium on there, and you can use your fingers to try to work out the wrinkles. You got to be careful because, especially with this paper, it is so thin. You can also just cut it into strips and wrap it around. I wanted a full front face on it. What I like to do is to have a little piece of palette paper on top of a bottle, and I'll just set it on top of that. You can also use freezer paper and just leave it like that to dry. So I'll put that over there. All right, so this is one that I've done already. It was dried overnight, but this one I just took the paper and I wrapped it around like this. And look, that's the back. So what I could do now at this point is I can wrap it again and the back will be a little bit smoother. I'm not going to. This is more for demonstration. All right, so what do we do now? Well, we're going to sketch our daisy. Now you can sketch the daisy freestyle with a pencil, or you can just paint it. I'm just going to get it started here. I'm just going to put a mark. I'm not going to make it too dark because the daisy is primarily white. So I'm just going to get very light. Let's get something here. So this one's really, really loose. Where the other one was more of a teardrop stroke. This one's got some pointed edges onto it. There we go. So once you've got that sketch, then you go right into painting. So we can actually do this the same as we did before. We can prime it. Now I'm going to prime it with gesso instead of using titanium white because it's faster. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that using a little round brush. And I like painting the leaves individually, or sorry, the petals individually. That way they hold their form. You can do it any way you want. Let me get a smaller brush. I'm using the gesso dry. And that's the other thing, is that when you're painting over a sketch, you're going to get some of that graphite or charcoal, whatever you used, dissolving into the paint. That's just part of the process. Don't get frustrated. This is just a prime. The only way to get around that then is just either create your sketch with a permanent marker, which is not a good thing if you're freestyling, unless you've been doing it for a long time, or just freestyle the painting. You can use soapstone as well, but the whole thing is that with that stuff you want it to be washable in case you make a mistake with the sketch. So you can't have it permanent and yet correctable. There you go. And get the inside there. Alrighty. And then I can work on it while it's wet. Take that titanium white. I'm going to take a little bit of blue and a little bit of burnt sienna. And I'm just going to start from the middle. A bit darker than that. It creates a bit of a gray. And what it does is this is going to help create a nice shadow in the middle of the stone. I'm going to try to do this completely in real time. Joe took Mia out for her walk, so hopefully I can do this in real time, finish to end, so you have a really good idea about how to do this. And if you do this like in batches, you can make quite a few of them and then sell them for a good profit. And especially if you're going to be, like, if you go to a craft show that is in a tourist area, you can put the city or the town or wherever you're in. And if you really want to get fancy, if you're good at lettering, you can customize it with the person's name. On the back, created for, let's say, Mary Sue by, Gisele Grenier or whatever. Okay, I'm going to create a little bit darker. And just on the outside. And the center, you want it to be rough. You don't want it to be a perfect circle. Something like that. And I'm just going to create a few little shadows. Let's see, where is this one? Oops, is this one here? So right where the petal is underneath another one, I'm just going to shadow that and shadow the part closest to the center. Just dragging it out. I'm not even letting the paint dry. I'm just going to keep working. The gesso helps the wet on wet technique, but as soon as the paint starts to drag, you have to stop. Like that. I know it kind of looks funny. Let's go now just with the white. And we'll just grab a little bit of the blue, not too much. And I'm going to go from the outside. Touch, push, lift towards the center. Touch, push, lift towards the center. Touch, push, lift towards the center. Like that. Okay. I'm going to take a bit more gray. Let's go to a different one. Let's go over here. Touch, push, lift towards the center. Touch, push, lift towards the center. And touch, push, lift towards the center. When you're lifting off, you get those nice wisps. Wisps. It's fine to let some of that dark show through. There's a gazillion ways that you can paint daisies. Let's go over here. And the ones that are underneath, they can be a little bit darker. And then you basically let that dry. Then you go in with a brighter layer. So you start off with the gray, then you're working lighter, 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 lighter. There's nothing lighter than white, so this is why as we start, we really don't want to work with pure white if you want to get something dimensional. Making sure you let that bottom layer show through. If you can do this wet on wet, that'll work really nice. Okay. And let's see, I'm going to give that a break for a second and work with the center. I'll take some Hansa Yellow Medium, speck of Naphthol Red Light, and a little bit of burnt sienna. And let's start working that center. I'm thinking something like that. Make sure it's kind of wonky. You don't want a perfect circle. Like that. Wipe the paint out of the brush and then pick up more of the pure yellow orange, and dot, dot, dot. And you're not going to go around the whole circle. You're going to go around more in the middle. So you've got the dark. Then you make another oval a little bit smaller. Wet on wet. Pick up yellow in your dirty brush. And just do the center. Then we're going to let that dry. And then once that dries, we're going to come in with a brighter yellow, and then we're going to speckle some white. Okay, so let's now just take same brush, pure white now, and come in and just touch, push, lift towards the center, not all the way through. And what you're focusing on is just the edges. You could tell which one I did just with the bright, which is this one here. What's nice with doing this with the fluid acrylics is that because they're semi-transparent, that you can do this. You can do so many layers. It's really beautiful. Just remember, there's nothing lighter than white. But you can make something really much brighter or much whiter by adding the same multiple layers, which makes it more opaque. See, even now as these are drying, they're still a little bit on the blue side. Oops, gotta go over here, which is fine. I'm just gonna finesse this a little bit, so where the petals overlap, I'm going to make sure that they're brighter, which sets the petal that's underneath further into the distance. Like that. Alrighty, just going to wipe my brush. I'm going to go into yellow, dirty brush. Oh, I needed more white there. It's a bit too much paint. Still a bit too much paint. I'm going to have to fix that a little bit. A little bit too much paint. There we go. Okay, so just going to dot the center. I'm going to rinse my brush. And now on the outside, I'm just going to fuzz that out with my damp brush, which will make the paint transparent, and it just blends right into the background. Rinse, 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 blot, and blend. So this is just another way of creating a pretty little stone. And I can take a little bit more of that dark mix there. If it doesn't quite blend enough, on a larger scale, I would use a bristle brush for this. See, it creates that beautiful blend. So dark around the outside and brighter towards the middle. And I can take a little bit more white. And just small spot there. And what you can do, now this is completely optional, and you really need a fine point. Burnt sienna, and I can just add a few little dots in there. And that's it. Now you can also take a paintbrush, and you can, like if you take a bristle brush with some white and you can splash it like this, that's fine. So at this point I can leave it the way it is, but I wanted to try some of the pearlizing medium. Now following the directions on the bottle is really, really hard. Mix with acrylic paint 1:1, add more medium to increase shimmer, apply with brush or sponge. Wow, that's really hard. Make sure that's, now I'm not mixing it with the paint, I want to put a layer over, and I need a clean brush. And I'm just gonna get that in there. Now wait for this to dry. My brush isn't quite clean. I can see a little bit of yellow coming off. Now what you can do is you can put a little bit of what is it? To emboss it. You can put a stamp, like the stamps that you use for embossing. Use a brush and apply that onto here, and then you can put some embossing powder on there if you want. I wouldn't probably wouldn't do that on a stone. Okay. Now I'm going to let that dry because I have no idea what it's going to look like. Well, let's see what happens. I'll come back in about 10 minutes. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? Just a slight little shimmer in there. That's gorgeous. So now what we can do is we can varnish it. And I'm going to take the Duraclear High Gloss Varnish. follow the directions on the bottle. Get my fancy brush. I have this brush just for varnishing. And honestly, the finish is whatever you want it to be. Anything that's high gloss or gloss is easier to clean. And just brush it all the way around. So it's best to use multiple light, even layers of varnish and don't overwork. So I would just let it sit now. Varnishing stones, for me, I do it over a 1 week period. That way I do all the I do batches all the tops, then flip them, then all the bottoms, and flip them, and just flip. But using the little paint bottle thing works well. And then also depending if you have, I don't know where you are if you have this. When we order pizza, there's these little discs, and they have little spikes to stop the lid from crushing into the pizza. Take those, turn them upside down, and they make perfect holders for stones. So you're only going to have like 4 little gumpy pokey holes that might look funny underneath, but you can always fill that in the final drawing. So by doing a whole bunch of stones at once, so you do everything in batches and then just varnish. The varnishing is the key, because if you're leaving these as art abandonment projects, or you're going to be selling them or giving them away, you don't know what the person's going to do with them. So always assume that the stones are going to be used outside in a garden. Always assume that. And so varnishing is key. So yeah, so that's going to leave that to rest. That actually didn't work out too bad. I'm not, with the paper, it's kind of wrinkly. But if you're going to use the paper, that's something you just have to be okay with. Alrighty, so that's it. So hope you like this experiment and give it a try. Don't forget to post your version of your creation in the community. The link is below. And until I see you in the next video, stay inspired.